Satisfy us in the morning with your love. Satisfy us in the morning with your love, that we may sing for joy and be glad in all our days. Satisfy us in the morning with your love. Match the days, Lord, of our sorrow with your joy. Match the days, Lord, of our sorrow with your joy. And may your deeds be always known to the ones you call your own. Match the days, Lord, of our sorrow with your joy. And may the favor of the Lord rest upon us and our land, and establish for us all the work of our hands. Yes, the work of our hands. Lord, for us you have been a refuge from age to age. Lord, for us you have been a refuge from age to age. Before the mountains were formed and the earth and the world brought forth, you are the everlasting Lord. May the favor of the Lord rest upon us and our land, and establish for us all the work of our hands. And may the favor of the Lord rest upon us and our land, and establish for us all the work of our hands. Yes, the work of our hands.
Hey folks, welcome to this fifth and second last segment of my conversation with Juno Award-winning singer-songwriter and author Steve Bell. If you're just dropping by for the first time, I think you'll enjoy this episode as a standalone, but it is a segment from a longer conversation, and so going back and spending some time with the previous episodes, if you haven't seen them, can really help to enlarge and enrich the context. In this particular segment, we've just heard Steve sing a song based on Psalm 90. If we went and read that psalm, one of the ideas we would encounter there is that God's love is unfailing. And because of that, it can be found everywhere, including in what one translation of that psalm calls affliction. That felt like a fairly timely idea to me, given the time of year. If you're a student, you're kind of in that very occupied zone between midterms and middle of semester assignments and end of term assignments and exams. There is, of course, this thing called the pandemic that's impacting us all. We're also looking down the barrel of the calendar at what might summer be like under these circumstances. And of course, there's always the possibility, the likelihood even, that our lives contain other things that we may be experiencing that we could genuinely call affliction. And some of those things will be enormous and very, very challenging. So it feels like these ideas probably have something to say that might encourage all of us. Now, when you're hanging out with a master storyteller like Steve, it's usually best to just, kind of give them the story ball and let them run. And mostly in these episodes, that's what's happened. Steve, in his inimitable troubadour style, has told a whole bunch of really lovely, insightful, memorable, wise stories. It's been fantastic. As the ebb and flow of our conversation has gone, in this particular episode, I sort of take a turn. and tell a bit of a story. And then Steve wraps it up by reflecting on how all sorts of embodied practices can become the vehicles that would carry that found everywhere love into our everyday life experiences, including experiences that we might genuinely call affliction. This episode is called Anything Can Become That. Enjoy.
Flourish.
Well, and my favorite working definition for wisdom is that wisdom is skill for living.
Yeah.
And in some ways, like any other skill, I mean, I can story from my end. I remember our oldest adult kid, Davis, who's also a guitarist.
And a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when they were a youngster, I don't know how old Davis was when this happened. Were they 12, 13? Anyway, an adolescent, and they were kind of getting into more involved fingerstyle. And I was just like, I was working with you, and you're a fingerstyle master. And I was like, we can get a lesson here, like you could sit down with Steve and you could learn some of this stuff. And I remember you sort of showing Davis, there's this alternate thumb thing, and you get that kind of going, and then these other bits, and kind of giving him this lesson. And I think back to, I recently accessed an old solo acoustic recording of Davis's that I was using in a podcast. And I heard those lessons, but I heard them taken somewhere new as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was that starting point of skill acquired by you over many years.
Yeah.
Right? That now you can just do that thing. Show somebody else how to do it, and they pick it up as a youngster, and then they do it for a couple of decades, and they don't have to think about it anymore. It's part of them. It's part of their skill for living. It's part of their enacted wisdom, because this is just sort of one big metaphor, this whole story that I'm telling, right? So that practice that turns an idea, skill for living, that's part of what spiritual practices are about.
Oh, good point.
Right?
Good. Yeah. They're not magic.
They're carrying things that are bigger than us, that are true, down into our minds, bodies, and spirits, into the way we live.
Right. And so then when you do encounter, again, to extend the metaphor, but pandemic, whatever, you're not necessarily, those skills are there. Right. Those things are there for you. You're not starting at the beginning or wondering if there's meaning or. Yeah. That's a good point.
I think it's one of the reasons why the disciplines are often so physical as well. Yeah. Right. Because they're like the actual feet that carry the mystery into our skills for life. They're Green taking Taya, our 16-year-old, out in an empty parking lot last week so she could burn donuts on an icy surface, so she could learn what a car does when it's slipping and sliding before she's slipping and sliding toward a semi-truck. It's that same principle, I think, in so many ways.
But she's not going to learn that from a book.
No.
You actually have to get in the car, right? Yeah. It has to be embodied in that sense too. Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole other thing, we could talk about at some point, but why do we kneel? Why do we stand? Why do we smile? I could be happy in my heart. I don't need to smile. You know what I mean? But actually I do. Actually, it turns out I do need to smile, and you need me to smile from time to time.
I was reading data just yesterday on this, actually, Stephen. It's kind of funny, just a little aside. But if you hold a pen in your mouth, so that it forces the corner of your mouth up.
Yeah.
Some of the same things that change in you physiologically when you smile by choice actually change.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually it actually, like, your heart rate kind of goes down, your respiration's kind of dialed back, your brain activity just settles a little bit.
Yeah. Here's another funny example of that. Okay, and this could be in a sense about how when we deliberately posture for liturgies or for spiritual practices or whatever, what can they do? But this is an example, not unlike that. There's a time that I forget what it was. I was really deeply distressed and unhappy about something, and my wife Nancy, who she's funny, and so she's kind of like kind of not knowing how to help me deal with whatever it was. I can't remember what it was, but I was unhappy about something, and she comes and she goes, "Steve, just clasp your hands like this." I did. It's just, "Now do this," and I did. She said, "Are you happy now?" And I was like, it was just, he says, nobody can be uncheered when you're doing this. And so every time now, not every time, but often now when one of the others is distressed, you kind of go, and it's so funny how fast, it doesn't take away the thing that's bringing you stress, but you got to smile, right? Like there's just something about that. And I have found, even in the last 4 years, I mean, you know me well enough to know how stressful the whole Trumpian thing has been. And I have found myself not satisfied to lie in bed and pray. I've been getting on my knees. I've been kneeling. There's something that needed to go further than just mentally addressing, God, with a petition or whatever. I just felt I needed to kneel. I needed something much more physical than just a mental exercise. And it makes sense.
Well, I know there've been, yeah, it's a great story, a great example. It's been, and if anybody that's watching this knows Nancy, you can picture that moment too. But it's fascinating, isn't it? Because I mean, I know in your own story, Steve, like I remember you talking about experiences where your body said something to you that was really important in terms of your own calling, for example. The just play, story that I've heard you tell, and just where you find yourself on your face, like literally, and realizing, no, I need to lie down in front of this. I need to lie down in the midst of this. My body needs to know this, not just my mind or even just my spirit. We're of a piece.
We're of a piece. Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why things like liturgy, which we could look at from the outside and go, well, stand up here, sit down there, do this, do that. The guy says that, then you say this, and it's the same every week. And how, growing up in a non-liturgical tradition, I can remember hearing that message delivered overtly. It's rote. It doesn't mean anything. I think we should evangelize the Catholics, by the way. Anyway, no, that was, they might not be Christians. And that kind of whole piece. And thinking about it now with a different basket of experiences to rummage around in, I'm like, no, actually, yes, it can be all those things, but so can being extemporaneous be all those things. So can anything we become accustomed to and cease to have it point toward a thing beyond it. Anything can become that.